And we're going to be teaching you a little bit of Yiddish because we use some Yiddish sometimes when we speak. So Mechaya is the first one, okay?
Everybody say Mechaya.
That was better pronounced than us.
Better than remedial Yiddish.
What the hell?
Great.
Okay, great. And here's another Yiddish word for you. Marek probably already maybe knows this one. Narishkayt. Narishkayt. It means silliness or stupidity. That's what we do. We do Narishkayt. But underneath the Narishkayt, there's something deeper, and there's some meaning to it. And we want to tell you about, we want to show you the Narishkayt, and we will definitely show you some Narishkayt. But we also want to tell you about the meaning underneath it a little bit. Now, class, did they tell you all about the quiz, the test that we're going to have now on Yiddish and our show? Have you all studied? Have you prepared for the test?
Sure.
Let's put it this way. If you fail the test, you don't get wine. My nomen is Jamie.
My nomen is Laser.
How is that? Is that Yiddish so far? We make a Yiddish comedy web series. I'm telling you this because you have no clue who the hell we are. This is our show, okay? It's called YidLife Crisis, where we talk about Judaism, Jewish identity, and it's comedy, and we discuss issues of identity, and we do it in Yiddish, even though secular Jews don't really speak Yiddish to each other in a casual setting in non-kosher restaurants where you see us talking and eating and doing stuff like that.
Tan blazer, blue glasses, Chaya, Laser. Sorry I'm late.
I don't have a lot of time. I have to be back at the hospital in an hour.
Yes, my mother told me that your mother told her that you're a neurosurgeon. Very impressive.
Your mother didn't mention what you do.
Freelance?
Okay, so, as our mothers may have discussed, I'm interested in leading a traditional Jewish life. I'm seeking candidates. I know exactly what I want. I have all the questions to ask right off the bat. So blind dates is just a more efficient way of, seeing if this is even possible. So you understand.
Totally get it. Fire away.
Well, the first question is a new one. What's he doing here?
Oh, hey, yeah,
How do you feel about eating kosher? In, out of the house?
Well, you see, the Bible was written by a cabal of sages, let's call them, who used a story and narrative based in Bronze Age polytheism, mythology.
I'm so sorry, my mother is calling. I better get this. Hello, Ma. Ja, du hältst mir nicht. Ja, ja. Sie sagst, was du kannst nicht leiden. Und sie sagst, was ich will. Also ich bitte dir, geh weg, Mami.
So sorry. My mother, too, I got it.
Ja.
Jo, Mami, entschuldig mir, aber ich will bleiben. Ihre Steitschigkeit ist erotisch.
Sie ist nicht für dich, sie ist für mich.
Ja,
Verschwind, Mami.
Verstehe.
Ich hab da von mir zwei Schmenderikes, was meinen, als ich red nicht kein Jiddisch und Pater in unserer Zeit.
My name is Batalion. I'm from Montreal in Quebec, Canada. And I have lived my entire life there. I grew up in the Jewish community there, which is somewhat integrated into the general French-Canadian community, but also somewhat isolated as well. I've studied a lot of different things from Jewish education when I grew up, through college, studying philosophy and psychology and doing a lot of theater, which eventually grew into filmmaking and eventually all consolidated into the YidLife Crisis project.
Ditto. Oh, okay, no. Okay, I'm Jamie Elman. I'm also from Montreal. You told me to eat while I talk, so I'm gonna eat. I just hope it's okay. Grew up in Montreal. Went to Jewish day school my whole life, Jewish summer camps. I grew up in the same Jewish community, actually around the corner from Ellie. Went to the same high school. I got my degree in English and theater at McGill University in Montreal, and then I moved to Los Angeles, where I've been for the last 16 years. I'm an actor.
YidLife Crisis started with Jamie and I, who were friends but had never worked together, coming up with the idea that we should do something together.
Wir seien ich. Wir seien Yiddish. Wir seien von ich.
Kasher.
Ich.
We thought it would be fun to do something together that also has that Jewish comedy flavor, and specifically to draw on the Yiddish that we had learned when we were both in high school, because we went to a high school that actually taught Yiddish, which is very, very rare. There's only like 2 schools in the world that do it, and ours is one. And we thought, there's a large comedy tradition in the Yiddish language. What if we did something that's like Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is Larry David's offshoot show, but we did it in actual Yiddish and performed it in actual Yiddish to make it really Jewish comedy. We're writers. We have things to discuss about our own identification process and the fact that we're in our mid-30s and trying to understand where our lives are going, but also where our Jewish identity plays a role in our lives. Because in some ways, it's very much a part of our lives and our families, and in other ways, we don't believe a lot of stuff, we don't practice a lot of stuff. In many traditional ways, we're non-observant. And most of our lives do not revolve around Judaism at all.
Das lass ich nicht glauben, du kennst essen nicht.
Lass ich nicht gehen, was du erst nicht.
Scheut, Mann, es ist verkackt in Yom Kippur. Ich bin gekommen von schon, der letzte 30 Minuten.
Leser. Und die hat doch nein gesagt, nicht, es ist nicht okay, Gott in den Himmel zu sagen, dass du wirst etwas essen, Yom Kippur.
Ich hab erst gesagt, dass wir können nicht wissen, oder Gott existiert. Zweitens, es ist nicht von Gott, dass ich hab Meuch, es ist die Älteren.
My family is a Yiddish-speaking family. The Yiddish mindset is definitely implanted in my parents based on their experiences. And they would speak Yiddish to each other to hide certain things from my sister and myself. And it's funny because Jamie and I have now been around the world, and when we ask people, specifically Jews, about their Yiddish knowledge, generally what we hear is the same story. My grandparents spoke it, my parents spoke it to hide stuff from us. We don't know it.
Wieso schneiden Sie herab? So perfekt, die Sprache ist von der kleinen Schnickelach.
Schon nutzt der Rav dieselbe Kehle von Mittelalter.
Ist nicht nur ein Rav, du am Moritz.
Ja.
Ist ein Moil,
Ja, weiß.
David und Emerson Briss.
Ja.
Und es ist nicht von Mittelalter, nur darf sehr modern wegzunehmen die beheimische sexuelle Instinkte, die besser zu leben mit unser Seichel.
Wie helft das der Tage?
So Ellie went to the full JPPS Bialik system. So not only did his family have Yiddish, but he was taught Yiddish starting from elementary school all the way through grade 11. I went to this other school for elementary school, so I only started learning Yiddish in high school in grade 7. And it was only for 5 years, and it was not very extensive. My parents speak Yiddish the way I think a lot of Jews around the world and in Montreal speak it, which is certain vernacular phrases that drop in, like mostly the dirty words, or pseudo-dirty words, schmendrick and putz, and some of these words probably are not even Yiddish at all, or at least to begin with, or meshuga, which still comes from the Hebrew anyways, meshuga. So those are the sort of Yiddish words that many North American Jews would just know from usually comedy and their grandparents, the words that they pick up about them being foolish and misbehaving and stuff like that.
Mr. Howard?
Howie's fine.
Mr. Howie? Mandel?
Howie.
I
Oh! Schmendrick! You Potts!
Entschuldig mir,
Jutz! Schlemiel! Mazel! Schmeckel! Schwan! Get cooking up in you! I got it. The gala's off. I gotta be hosed out.
Howie,
Thank
no.
you. Thank you.
No.
I gotta be.
Howie!
no bless you? Das ist ein Mensch.
He has actually taught me a lot of Yiddish, and working on the show has taught me a lot about Yiddish, and I'm obviously using a lot more of my focus to understand it and to be able to learn it. He can speak it. He'll tell you he doesn't really speak it, but he really does speak it a little bit. Maybe he's not ultra fluent in it, but he can definitely understand it. He was the Yiddish valedictorian at our high school. I'm mostly faking it.
These are the only tools I'd ever be interested in.
Okay, that's not even plastic.
Do you have any pierogies here?
Yes,
Okay.
But do you have the best pierogies here?
everything.
Really?
The best, the worst, and the average.
Ein, zwei, drei, nasch.
Too hot.
Our goal in being in Poland was to do that show, which for us has the most symbolism than any other show we've done to date, because we're going back to the place where our grandfathers were speaking Yiddish and where Yiddish really thrived, and bringing it back in a new way. And I don't know what they'd be thinking at this point, seeing the state of Krakowian Jewry in Yiddish, that it's the comedy duo that comes back and it's the non-Jews together they're bringing it. I hope that they're smiling and finding it quite ironic, but yet very pleasurable that it's coming from these unlikely sources to revitalize it.
Pick your Jews.
I would like the music Jew,
Yeah.
and I would like...
What city are you from?
We're from Montreal, Canada.
Lemon.
Yeah. We're here to buy some Jews. 50 zloty.
We're gonna get so lucky.
By the way, the whole idea of Jews being lucky, that's questionable, okay?
During that time as well, we want to explore more and learn more about the Polish community, and specifically those that are interested in studying the Jewish community, and looking at Krakow as well as a city where that's really happening, probably, I'm going to guess, more so than any other city in Poland.
Ein, zwei, drei, nasch. What is the Jewish population? Because we've tried to figure this out in the 24 hours or so that we've been here, and no one can give us a straight answer on this. How many Yidden are here?
If nobody else is giving you a straight answer, you expect a straight answer from me?
Jews have never given straight answers for the last 3,000 years.
Not even straight questions.
Okay, fair enough. You can answer with a question if you want, obviously.
What does it mean? Who is a Jew?
Well, we could pretty much end the show right here.
The way that we look at it is there's a few things going on. I have a friend, not to go on too much of an elongated story here, but I have a friend who's found out 10 years ago his mother is Jewish. He got very involved and very excited, feels very Jewish. He learned Hebrew, he has a daughter, he raises her Jewish, no question. He has a brother. The brother found out at the same time. They were both in their mid-30s. Thanks, but no thanks, I'm not interested. I don't feel Jewish, and he goes to church every week. Now, according to Jewish law, they're both Jewish. The brother who goes to church every week, his mother is Jewish, he's Jewish. But it's hard for me to call somebody who doesn't feel Jewish, who his whole life didn't know he was Jewish, who's practicing another religion, to call him Jewish. So here, actually, I think they feel the loss of this 1,000-year-old community that contributed so much to the country. And if you take a look at Poland, the last time there was a lot of Jews here, 1939, right before the war broke out, I mean, the country was 10% Jews, 10% Jewish, 3.5 million Jews. 60% of the lawyers were Jewish, 40% of the doctors. And this is an amazing, amazing Jewish presence. There was something like 30 daily Yiddish newspapers in Poland in the outbreak of World War II. And almost all of that is destroyed. And then from the other side, the Russians come in and enforce really silence about what happened for 45 years. So there's this pent-up desire in Poland to understand what it means to be Polish. And if you want to understand what it means to be Polish, you have to understand what happened to the Jews and the history of the Jews and this co-shared narrative between non-Jewish and Jewish Poles for 1,000 years. There's a nice story about why the street is called Esther Street. We're in the neighborhood called Kazimierz, which used to be a separate city, but Kazimierz was a king of Poland, and he's the one king of Poland known as the Great. He was Kazimierz, in Polish, Kazimierz Wielki. And the idea is that he had a Jewish lover named Esther, and that's why he was also very, very favorable, very nice and good to the Jews, because he had some personal knowledge of how snazzy we are.
Personal, biblical knowledge, you might even say?
One might say that, and that there's even an idea that he lived in the castle in Wawel, which was the seat of Polish kings for a long time, and then there was a tunnel underneath that he could sneak over to visit and have some biblical study sessions.
Get some Talmud lessons.
Get some Talmud in there.
Respect to the legendary king.
Humor in Judaism is very important. And what's interesting is there's nothing in the Bible or any of the main books, or really even the Talmud, I would think, that suggests that. So it's more of an oral history of comedy that exists, tied to the idea of debating, analyzing, trying to get at answers, viewing things from a different angle, which I think is a big part of our history, our intellectual history, our spiritual path as well, constantly trying to find answers, especially when things are difficult. And specifically, as I think Sigmund Freud himself would think, it's a massive defense mechanism. It's one of the few defenses that the Jews have had, particularly in a diasporic position when Jews were not really in control of their destiny. And there were many traumatic events, some extremely traumatic events, and the ways to deal with that have often been comedy. So I think there's a strong humor tradition in Judaism. I asked myself this question as part of my YidLife Crisis: when did Jews get funny? Were Jews funny during the Bible? Is this a diasporic thing?
Do you guys know this one? We're gonna take it to the YMCA. We're gonna take it.
There are parts of the Bible that are a little bit funny, or like Jewish comedy style, like when Abraham was negotiating with God?
Yeah.
For souls.
If I can find you 50 tzaddikim, will you spare the city? God says, fine. Couldn't find 50. Did I say 50? Let's call it 45. If I could find 40, let's say an even 40 guys, can't find it. Listen, 10, right? Listen to me right now. 10 solid.
For you, I make good price.
For you, 10 people save the city.
I mean, it sounds like a shook Israeli market negotiation, but it's Abraham and God. And just the idea of being able to negotiate with God. And that God also enters the negotiation.
Yeah, he entered. Okay, find me 10. Find me 10 and you got a deal.
Right.
בדברים עברית זה יותר אותה תקופה? אנחנו עושים תוכנית ביידיש, קומדיה, לאינטרנט, שמחר בערב אנחנו עושים קצת תוכנית בהיי סינגוג. אם אתה רוצה לבוא?
מחר בערב?
כן, ב-7. We'll talk. It's
check
free. We don't need to do any
Okay,
negotiating.
I'll check it. Sex, drugs, and milk.
And meat. Yeah. It's.
No.
I thought you said he speaks Hebrew and Yiddish. Now he's reading the English. I wouldn't have given him this. Let me have this.
Okay, Hebrew.
Dude, I think we lost him.
Yeah, he'll come. Okay, nice.
זה כשר מאוד. I mean.
Kasher?
Yeah,
Milk and
absolutely.
meat?
זה קשה.
It's kosher
I never
style.
tasted it. Maybe
It's kosher style.
it's kosher
You're
style.
not missing much, trust me.
Yeah. The cheese is tofu.
Cheeseburger is better.
It's tofu.
It's tofu.
You
Ah,
can
it's
eat
tofu.
it. Yeah. It's okay. It's
It's
okay.
veggie burger with tofu cheese.
Tivol, זה טיבול.
זהו.
שניצל סויה.
בדיוק.
Actually, one of the things that I've really enjoyed about the project is finding out when there are ultra-Orthodox and religious people that have really appreciated this stuff. It's actually really changed my opinion a lot on the tolerance and the enjoyment and the mutual enjoyment of Jewish comedy, to the point where it's fine to make fun. And as far as the values of Judaism that we appreciate, I mean, there's some commandments that we accept, some that we don't, but culturally, it's this ability to question ourselves and make fun of ourselves that I think is very core to Judaism, and I think is a very valuable property and characteristic, and which, quite frankly, I would say I wish on the entire world. And certainly what concerns me the most in our modern political environment is situations where that's not allowed, and religious fundamentalism where the last thing that's associated with them is comedy and the ability to make fun of oneself.
So here are books connected with the Jewish religion and philosophy, all this stuff, and even you see some Kabbalah books, and also very popular literature, the Jewish jokes. Everybody are buying Jewish jokes.
Right. And this you can't get in the library.
Probably not. University library, not.
So can you translate? So this is Jewish humor, right?
Yeah, Jewish humor.
Żydowski?
Yeah.
Żydowski? So what's the joke that they're telling here?
Moshe, how much is 2 times 2? You buying or you selling?
An ancient Polish classic. Okay, so what, is this a classic joke? I mean,
Yes, it's very classic
It's a standard.
joke.
Is it a standard Jewish joke?
One off, because there are a lot of standard Jewish jokes. Itzek, can you lend me 100 zlotys? From whom?
Okay, now hang on. There seems to be a theme here.
I haven't heard these jokes in America, and they're pretty good.
We'll bring them back with us.
Yeah. We genuinely believe that there's some Jewish element to absolutely everybody, and some of these characteristics, I don't know, maybe we don't both believe that, but I think on some level we acknowledge that there's some characteristics that everybody shares, and I think that those resonate with non-Jews when it comes to Jewish comedy.
You didn't have to be here. You could have gone to the Star Wars pre-party. But no, you said Yiddish was more important and you came here, even though I'm guessing your first language is neither English nor Yiddish. And as an act of diplomacy, of reciprocity, we thought we would do a little bit of Polish for you as well, just to show you that we would like to express your language as well. Hopefully we'll do justice to it.
Yeah, Yaakov, he helped us translate some of the things that we wanted to say, so thank you.
Thank you, Kuba.
So first of all, we wanted to say thank you for coming.
Dziękujemy, że przyszliście na nasz występ.
We wanted to say that everyone that we've met, everyone that we just mentioned, but even the people on the streets and the restaurants, everyone we've met has been really warm and generous with us.
Polki są bardzo piękne.
And we've really felt at home here.
Masz zgrabne pośladki.
And, we're Canadian, so as Canadians have welcomed so many peoples from all over the world, we feel very lucky that you have welcomed us into Poland.
Yes. Czy dacie wiary, że ci idioci z Kanady właśnie to czytają?
Sorry for the pronunciation. We didn't have time to, And finally, from the bottom of our hearts, we just want to say thank you, Krakow.
Nienawidzimy Warszawę.
So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Kuba. I'll try and do a quick anecdote. I was in Romania and I met a kid who was 21 years old who had never left this very small Romanian town that he was in. He was 21 and he was fascinated in talking to me as a North American. I was shooting a movie in Romania, and so that's why I was there. And so he was interested in, making movies and hearing about that. But he's never left this town of like 5,000 people, basically, in his life. He'd never even been to Bucharest, the capital city, which is like a 3-hour bus ride away. And he told me at some point in the conversation that his favorite show on TV is Seinfeld, and that him and his friends watch Seinfeld every day, and they can quote it, and my mouth was on the floor because I tried to understand. So he was like, why are you so surprised that this is my favorite show? And I said, well, it's hard for me to understand in a way, even though I know how popular it is in the States, and I guess I didn't realize how popular around the world, because the show is so specifically American, and you've never been to America. So there's a certain American aesthetic that I'm surprised that you understand or appreciate. The show is so specifically New York City, which is even its own little world. It's not even that little a world inside of America, and that's so specific, New York City. And you've never been to New York. He cannot even imagine New York. Of course, he's seen it in the movies and on TV, but it's so specifically New York. And it's also so specifically Jewish. And I just didn't know that you would appreciate such a level of Jewish humor. And he said, what do you mean? Why is it so Jewish? I said, well, because Jerry Seinfeld is Jewish, and You know, the other actors on the show are Jewish or half Jewish. You know, the co-creator, Larry David, is Jewish. You know, what your meaning? What you talked about? Why you say Jerry is Jew? Jerry not Jew. No, Jerry is Jew. Jerry is definitely Jew, and so are all the writers. Just look at the credits. It's Schaefer and Berg and Mandel. The directors are Jewish, the writers, the producers, the network heads, the studio heads. They're Jews. Jerry cannot be Jew. Jerry cannot be Jew. Jew. I said, why not? Because Jew are bad people. They are dirty Jew. They only love to have money. Jerry not Jew. Anyways, we weren't very close friends after that part of the conversation. But the interesting thing about it was that he didn't even know. No, but it's true.
I know, that's
it's
funny.
so insane. And but then I realized that Jewish comedy appeals to non-Jews, even if they don't know that it's Jewish comedy. We find that people enjoy our show more when they're drunk.
The less conscious they are.
The more you drink, the funnier the show becomes. L'chaim?
Na zdrowie? There you go.
The biggest Yiddish newspaper in America, in New York, is the Forward. They know that. Okay, good. So they're already ahead of me on that.
The Yiddish names.
The Forwards, yeah. This is the Forward online, the Forwards online. And we just sent our friend over there, Jordan Kutzik, the episode, and he immediately wrote a review of it. In Yiddish. And the thing is, and then he posted it on Facebook just now, and he tagged us in it, and we were having a debate before you guys came in. Should we write him back and say thank you for plugging the episode? And then we realized we don't know what the hell this says. Jingle bells. Get it? The jingle bells. Yeah, okay, good.
Neue Episode von YidLife Crisis.
That's us. I understood that. Okay.
Okay. Die Sterne von YidLife Crisis.
Oh, is that us? Okay, good. That's good. Nice. Okay, good. Uh-huh.
Die junge Komiker.
Why don't you shut up? I understood that, Anya. We're young in spirit.
Laser Batalion und Jaime Elman sind zurück mit dem zweiten Kapitel in der zweiten Saison von sehr jiddisch sprachlicher Komödie-Serie.
Okay, already.
Really fantastic.
We studied Yiddish for 5 years in high school, and we can't read like you.
I guarantee everyone we went to high school with cannot read at
Weil
this
bin ich
level.
gewesen auf dem Kurs in Tel Aviv.
For how long?
Ein Chodesh.
In Chodesh. That's 1 month.
Yeah.
So what? So she's like, no, I had an advantage. I studied for a month. I know people who've been studying it for 10 years who can't do what you just did.
The Yiddish language is mostly German, has some Hebrew in it, has various Slavic terms, some of which are Polish, some which must be Ukrainian, some which might be Czech, for all I know, and has even incorporated to a certain degree some American terms and possibly Canadian terms the more that people were there. So everywhere that the Jews went in their diasporatic journey, picked up more of it. It accumulated like some sort of snowball. So the language itself, if you study the words and the lexicon, it's almost like a history lesson.
Hey, Kuba.
Hey, nice meeting you.
Hey.
Hi.
I'm Jamie.
These are my friends Jamie and Ellie from Montreal.
Nice seeing
This
you.
is Jacob Nowakovsky, the director of the Galicia Jewish Museum.
It's so nice having you here in Krakow.
So the heart of the Galicia Jewish Museum is an exhibition called Traces of Memory, that through the colorful photographs tell different narrations, different aspects of the Jewish story here in Poland. Shows us the story of ruins, shows us the story of life, shows us things connected with the Holocaust. Every town and village has its own Holocaust story, because every town and village had the Jewish community living in those places. So that's one very front, a powerful image of Poland, which is of course true. But what this image of death and destruction and Auschwitz and mass killing sites is overshadowing is the story of life. the story of life that existed here from 800 or 900 years before the destruction. And this is something that is very often excluded from the narration. So what has changed as a part of those democratic changes that occurred in Poland since 1989, 1990, 1991 is the fact that Poles living in those towns and villages, and you can see some of those photographs here, they realized that, first of all, Jewishness is part of their local story, and second of all, is that there is no one else that will tell their story unless they decide it. Poland is complicated. I mean, you know, what the very often foreign visitors want to see is only this dark side of Poland. I mean, this dark side of the destruction and the Holocaust and Nazi OK graffitis and so on and so on. And it is what you can see in Poland. And yet Poland is also something that is very much more positive. I mean, that tells you the story of life, of the survival. So it is precisely only up to you what Poland, what image of Poland you will take back with you.
It's strange to be back in Poland and see the picture of the march. I was on the March of the Living, I think in 92, 93, something like that, which is I think only the second time that it ever went. It was an unbelievable experience. I was 15 years old. Like I said, I don't have any memory of colorful Krakow. I remember the whole trip in black and white. Even though it did teach us about pre-war Poland and shtetl life and celebrated it, you know, but really when I say that, I'm just picturing the mezuzah markings on the door that aren't there anymore, and you know. So I sang the prayer for the dead at Majdanek, at the death camp at Majdanek, at the mausoleum, right, with the dome which covers 8 tons of human ash. I was 15 years old, and it was like a mind-blowing, intense experience. It led me to, you know, really making Jewish identity a major issue in my life, which I'm still working through. And luckily I have the help now of a great shrink who helps me do it. And his name is Eli Batalion. Doctor?
Your time is over.
No.
But,
Session's up.
I'll see you next week in Poland.
Next week it is. Leshavua haba b'Polin. Cut.
Hebrew has become a competitor with Yiddish because based on the work of Eliezer ben Yehuda to do a revisionist version of the Hebrew language, that became the international language of Jews. And there was a big program to make Hebrew that language, whereas Yiddish used to be that way. That was the way that if you went to Buenos Aires or Paris or Montreal, you knew that you could always speak Yiddish to another Jew. When we were in Israel, we had a lot of debates about Jewish identity, discussions about that with Israelis and trying to understand. Many of them are embarrassed by Yiddish, or at least used to be, because it represents for them a vision of a weak Jew that can be taken advantage of. And for Israel and the feeling, basically dealing with the trauma of having been taken advantage of, a large part of the Israeli mentality is that'll never happen again, and we will make sure that we're not weak.
We've both been here before. The last time I was here was 25 years ago on a trip, the March of the Living. This trip has been much funnier.
I was actually here about 8 years ago, and I was in Kazimierz, and I was very impressed by the place. All 4 of my grandparents are from Poland, so it's very meaningful for me to come back and check it out. And I'm actually here now to pick up their mail. So if anyone sees any mail for Zelachowski, that's me.
For him. You could
Please
just leave
forward
it
it to the front.
with Anna or somebody, and
Thank you.
we'll pick it up later.
What concerns me about the ability to get people interested in Jewry here is to do it on a one-dimensional angle. It's to say, we love Jews. Look, they have hummus, and they play fiddles. And we like both of those things. They're really nice. And it's fun, it's entertainment. I mean, I appreciate the fact that that is the entry point into a conversation, and that's part of the identity process. And eventually, and I believe it's starting to happen now, will come a harder time where there will be discussions about, well, yeah, but what about the pogroms? Okay, well, what about, I mean, by the way, come from the Jewish side, I'm sure there are criticisms of the Jewish community that we've never heard. So one criticism might be, well, why have you been so isolated this whole time? Why were you not more nationalistic? when I don't know, in various wars. I mean, I have no idea, but these are the kinds of things that I would expect to come up in conversation. And so that dialogue is interesting, and I hope that it goes beyond the kitsch of literally toys and joke books, which are still very funny, into this kind of discussion. And I don't know if as comedy peacekeepers we are the right people to necessarily facilitate that discussion, but I think it's an important discussion to have. And I hope that it will make the relationship between Jews and Poland even better, because right now and this would be very ironic, certainly to my grandparents, Poland is one of the biggest allies of the Jews in the world right now. So I think it's important that that relationship not just be based on convenience, but on a bigger understanding.
We never thought our little show would ever make it to Krakow, or that people would show up. Dziękuję. We thought we'd be the biggest Jews. To our surprise, there was great news. We're the biggest goys here. Hallelujah. 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 I can't hear you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. In Polish. Hallelujah.
In Hebrew.
Hallelujah.
In Yiddish.
Hallelujah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, Jews, we're all ish, you know. Come on, sing it. Yeah, 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 yeah. Put your arms around each other. Yeah, 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 yeah.